Rolls Royce is expanding its power systems business across the continent through a combination of share acquisitions and power firms across Africa, even as it pitches its small modular nuclear reactor business to countries interested in expanding access to low-carbon electricity. Rolls Royce has invested an undisclosed sum in Kauri Energy, a startup that will provide distributed power solutions through solar PV and battery storage systems. The firm will roll out operations in Nigeria and Mali later this year, with power plants up to 1 megawatt in size. A few hours ago, I spoke to Patrick Regis, his Rolls Royce President for business in Africa, the Middle East, Turkey and Central Asia. I started by asking him why we should expect to see more deals of this kind from the firm.
We've really looked at how we deliver energy and power generation in a different way in recent years, really looking at changing the culture inside the company and thinking more entrepreneurial. And so Kauri Energy is a product, essentially, of that kind of thinking. Less big acquisitions and big investments, more tailored, focused investments in areas that are important to us.
Anyone watching this will ask, wait a minute, what on earth is sustainable aviation fuels? Because, reading about this entire topic, you hear about how we need to move towards synthetic fuels. This has been around for a while. Our South African viewers will know this because Sasol does some interesting work on that front in the country.
Exactly.
But when we talk about synthetic fuels coming into the markets, how do they compare to the traditional fuels that we know about, especially with respect to their carbon footprint?
That's a good question, and I don't want to get too much into the engineering of this. But synthetic fuels are, you're right to say they've been around for years. Actually, I think the mid-1920s. They are aircraft fuels with significantly reduced carbon emissions when you compare them to Jet A fuel. They can be derived from a variety of different ways, feedstocks, including biomass, waste, or organic material, converted into usable products using a conversion process. What we're focusing on is e-fuels. So that's e-fuels, they differ from synthetic aviation fuels in that they're manufactured directly from carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, combined with low carbon hydrogen. And so the term e-fuels is widely used. It covers aviation fuel as well as traditional fuel non-aviation.
And the process of creating the synthetic fuels is very energy intensive. And as I understand it, the pitch you're making is that, look, we can deliver e-fuels on one hand, but to do that, we can also provide these small modular reactors that will essentially provide the stable power in large quantities that you need to develop those e-fuels.
Yeah, and I think obviously you've been doing your homework, because small modular reactors is something we're absolutely passionate about as a business. And we think that for Africa, it's a perfect system offering to resolve a lot of the electrification concerns in a sustainable way. We think of nuclear in a negative way often, but actually we've been in the nuclear business for over 60 years, designing small nuclear power stations for nuclear submarines for the Royal Navy. And one day we decided to look at the civil nuclear industry, and we saw that these big nuclear power plants were in a budget overrun mode, taking too long to build. And we said, why don't we just kind of use our knowledge with our 2,000 nuclear engineers on board and start thinking about a small, compact nuclear power station. And the thing that's really important here, Ramah, is that we're not talking, as a lot of our competitors are talking about, simply the nuclear reactor portion. No, that's de-risked. We're using PWR technology that is well understood. We can replace it with new technology later. What's important is the fact that we have a power station that is built around modularity, built in a shop, manufactured, standard, and can be delivered at low cost.
But anyone watching this, Patrick, will say, okay, that on paper sounds interesting, but when it comes down to it, if, say, for example, let's say Kenya, right, their plan is to essentially have at least 1,000 megawatts of nuclear power at some point to start with. For that sort of power demand, how much would it cost them? And more importantly, can it compete in a world where geothermal is delivering power to the grid at 9 US cents to the dollar per 9 US cents per kilowatt hour?
Well, again, it's a great question. Look, we're not here to compete with other energy sources. The challenge is so big that there's enough room for everybody. There's enough room for intermittent, because that's what it is, solar, wind, and I would say the classic renewables solutions.
I know you as Rolls Royce, that is, you've put in a pitch on the latest RFI from South Africa's Department of Energy and Mineral Resources. But are there other African markets that you're particularly keen on who have expressed an interest in the uptake of these SMRs?
I think Kenya is interested in it. And look, we know that other countries are approaching African countries directly. We are speaking with, just starting a discussion with Kenya, certainly with South Africa, quite mature. We know Nigeria would be interested in, perhaps in North Africa, but we're focusing on sub-Saharan Africa.